Hello everyone, this is Cobalt. This is the next video in my character analysis series for Brawlhalla. Stick around till the end to hear about entering the giveaway to win community colors, emotes, weapon skins, sidekicks, avatars, or even the battle pass, and voting for the next legends. And if you want to skip all this and get straight into the information, there's a timestamp in the description, and don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with the release of your favorite legend. In these analyses, I wanted to focus solely on the character's signatures. Light attack combos are covered much more in depth than I ever could elsewhere and function pseudo-comparably for all characters of that weapon class. So I'm not going to be discussing the general neutral of the character with their weapons unless it pertains in some way to their signatures. Firstly, I want to give clear descriptions of the terminology I'll be using. Startup frames are the amount of frames that happen after a move has begun until the first hitbox of the move becomes active. Active frames are the duration of frames that the move contains hitboxes that can collide with your opponent. FAF, or First Actionable Frame, is the first frame available where your character is able to move again after the move has been started. For all of this data, I use the character's jump to display the first actionable frame. Lastly, On Miss refers to the move not connecting with an opponent, and On Hit refers to the move making contact with an opponent. I'm going to be doing my analysis today on the next highest voted legend, Koji. I wonder why everybody voted for Koji.
The Boomy's demon, right? Like, he has fought Sandstorm many times in bracket.
Nah, couldn't be. Koji is the quintessential samurai, a wanderer whose code keeps him to a strict honor-bound dignity. He killed Hattori's husband prior to making his way into Brawlhalla, and was determined to create his own techniques and bring honor to his family name. Koji's weapons are sword and bow, a weapon combination befitting a samurai. They each offer him consistent combos, and he has some decent results recently. He has incredibly high dexterity, but the rest of his stats are rather average or low. His low defense means he can get knocked out rather quickly, but his high dex does make his combos a little tighter, and these lower stats have certainly not limited his results competitively. So, let's see if his SIGs helped him or hurt him whenever it comes to his competitive viability. Let's start with his sword. Sword side SIG has a 16 frame startup, active frames from 17 to 21 and 33 to 37, with an FAF of 57. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Koji performs two slices one after the other in front of him. The startup on this move is pretty good. It has an average FAF, but it's got pretty good KO potential, especially near the ledge. This SIG is pretty simple, and it doesn't seem like one of Koji's more integral pieces of his move kit, but it's not bad. Sword in SIG has 13 frames of startup, active frames from 14 to 18, 23 to 27, and 32 to 36 with an FAF of 58. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. On hit, there is a finishing slice added after the 36th frame, which goes from 58 to 62 with an FAF of 81. Koji performs 3 quick slices into the air in a triangular pattern, before sealing his sword away in its sheath. This move has really fast startup, and has the highest amount of active frames of any of his SIGs. It has average to high FAF, but with the amount of active frames it has, it makes sense. This move is really good at catching jumping opponents, and due to its high active frames has the ability to catch opponents trying to land on or near Koji, with an aggressive option like down air or a ground pound. It's definitely punishable on miss, but it has its utility thanks to its range and threat coverage. Sword down SIG has a 25 frame startup, active frames from 26 to 29 with an FAF of 51. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Koji darts forward, disappearing and reappearing roughly halfway across the stage to perform a rapid slice with his katana. This move has a pretty high amount of startup and a very small range. This is a pretty precise strike, so it needs to be spaced well. It's an incredibly cool move to land and really satisfying to hit. The distance this move travels is also really large. You could ledge trap opponents from, well, close to center stage with a move like this thanks to its huge travel distance. It does have a decent FAF, but I'd say its utility is pretty limited. Next up is his bow. Bow side SIG has 23 frames of startup, active frames from 24 to 28 with an FAF of 51. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Koji performs a somersault on the ground before firing an arrow straight either left or right. This move knocks out pretty early, and the little roll that he does at the startup of the move can offer some range to catch opponents trying to run away. The hitboxes for it are really narrow, but extend a decent range from Koji. Bow in SIG has a 15 frame startup, active frames from 16 to 22 with an FAF of 42. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Koji shoots an arrow from his bow straight upward. This move has incredibly low startup and FAF. It's really fast and has good coverage for opponents trying to jump over Koji or land on top of him. The speed that this move comes out makes it challenging to avoid if you're close to Koji, but it's really useful SIG and has excellent synergy with his kit. Bow down SIG has 14 frames of startup, active frames from 15 to 22 with an FAF of 46. It functions differently on miss than it does on hit. Should the initial 7 frames connect, a second connecting hit comes out from frames 39 to 43 with an FAF of 64. Koji slams his foot onto the floor, popping up a massive trapdoor. This is my favorite SIG Koji has. It's got style, large hitboxes, KO power, and holy hell is it fast for what it can do. It doesn't have a huge amount of active frames, but that's not that huge of a determinant thanks to its low startup and FAF. It's useful for catching opponents directly in front of or jumping in front of Koji. It's pretty strong and has good option coverage for edge guarding or ledge trapping. It's really useful SIG and has a lot of utility on Koji's moveset. So overall, his SIGs are on the lower end in terms of frame data. He has pretty fast startup times on most of his SIGs. And pretty low FAF, making them probably the safest in terms of punishability of any legend I've covered thus far. They don't have the highest amount of active frames by any stretch with the exception of his sword and SIG, but these quick slashes make sense given his character design as a samurai. I think his bow down SIG is really good, with such low startup and end lag coupled with its excellently placed hitboxes makes it really threatening. His bow SIGs are really good in my opinion. His sword SIGs are a little less strong, they have higher active frames and reasonable knockout power, but their punishability is higher than his bow for sure. He has pretty good range coverage with his bow and moderately good coverage with his sword. His down SIG on bow is insanely good, and his other bow SIGs are pretty fast. He's seen some good results in tournaments lately, and I think that his SIGs are pretty good given their low startup time and decent hitboxes. Give him a shot if you haven't already. Sandstorm and Boomy certainly have. Today's code to put down in the comments is Ronin, along with your Twitter handle. Tune in tomorrow for coverage on the next highest voted legend. Check the description for the poll to vote for next week's 5 legends. I'll announce the winners on Friday along with the results of the poll for next week's 5 legends, so be sure to vote for your favorites. I'll be continuing this once a day, Monday through Friday, over the next 10 weeks until all 50 legends are covered. So, thanks for joining me on this ride, and hope to see you back for the next one. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss your favorite legend. Once again, I'm Cobalt, and thanks for watching.